Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi Dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. In today's update, we are taking a careful and analytical look at a set of circulating claims within parts of the dinar community. These claims reference so-called bond contexts, banking contexts, and group-related sources suggesting potential timelines for certain financial movements, with one phase possibly concluding by early April and another phase potentially extending into mid-April. As always, our goal here is not to amplify speculation, but to break it down, evaluate its credibility, and understand what, if anything, it could realistically mean for followers of the Iraqi dinar. Let's begin by addressing the nature of the information itself. The statements being shared rely heavily on unnamed sources described as bond people, banking contexts, and groups in financial analysis. Especially when discussing currency markets or sovereign monetary policy, the credibility of information is strongly tied to transparency, verifiability, and official confirmation. Anonymous or second-hand reports, while sometimes interesting, do not meet the standard required to form reliable conclusions. When we hear references to bond payouts or group exchanges, it's important to understand that these concepts are not part of any officially recognized monetary framework publicly confirmed by global financial institutions or the Central Bank of Iraq. There is no verified documentation from credible financial authorities indicating that private groups or exclusive channels will receive preferential access to currency revaluations or special exchange rates. Therefore, any timelines tied to such mechanisms should be approached with caution. Now let's examine the timeline being suggested. The claim is that bond-related activities could be completed between now and early April, followed by group or banking-related movements between April 2nd and April 15th. While timelines can sound compelling, especially when they are specific, history has shown that repeated predictions tied to exact dates in the dinar space have consistently failed to materialize. This pattern highlights a key principle in financial analysis: specificity does not equal accuracy. From a macroeconomic standpoint, any significant change in the value of a national currency, such as the Iraqi dinar, would require a series of measurable and transparent steps. These include monetary policy adjustments by the Central Bank of Iraq, coordination with international financial institutions, foreign exchange reserve stability, inflation control, and broader economic reforms. None of these processes occur in secrecy or are executed overnight. Iraq's economy has indeed been undergoing gradual reform. The country has made efforts to stabilize its banking system, improve transparency, and increase integration with global financial markets. Oil revenues continue to play a dominant role in Iraq's fiscal position, and fluctuations in global oil prices directly impact the country's economic stability. Additionally, Iraq has been working to modernize its payment systems and reduce reliance on cash transactions, which is a positive long-term development. However, none of these reforms point toward a sudden, dramatic, or secretive shift in currency value tied to private groups or insider timelines. Instead, they suggest a slow and structured approach to economic improvement. This is consistent with how emerging markets typically evolve. Let's also consider the role of banks in this narrative. Claims about banking contexts often imply that financial institutions are preparing for a major event behind the scenes. In reality, banks operate under strict regulatory frameworks. Any significant change in currency valuation would require coordination across international banking systems, including compliance with anti-money laundering regulations, reporting standards, and central bank directives. Such coordination cannot be hidden or limited to select individuals. Furthermore, global financial markets are highly interconnected. If a major currency event were imminent, we would expect to see signals in foreign exchange markets, shifts in bond yields, changes in central bank communications, or movements in related financial instruments. As of now, there is no credible evidence in these areas supporting the idea of an imminent revaluation tied to the timelines being discussed. Another important aspect to address is the psychological impact of these kinds of rumors. For many dinar holders, The anticipation of a significant financial event can be emotionally engaging. Specific dates and insider language can create a sense of urgency or excitement. However, this can also lead to unrealistic expectations and, in some cases, poor financial decision-making. A responsible approach to following the Iraqi dinar or any speculative asset is to remain grounded in verifiable data. This includes monitoring official statements from the Central Bank of Iraq, reviewing economic indicators such as GDP growth, inflation rates, and foreign reserves, and understanding the broader geopolitical context in which Iraq operates. In the short term, the claims being discussed are unlikely to have any measurable impact on the actual value of the Iraqi dinar. Currency markets do not react to unverified rumors. They respond to policy decisions, economic data, and geopolitical developments. Therefore, while these timelines may generate discussion within certain communities, they do not represent actionable financial information. In the long term, the value of the Iraqi dinar will depend on Iraq's ability to continue its economic reforms, maintain political stability, diversify its economy beyond oil, and strengthen its financial institutions. These are complex challenges that require time, consistency, and international cooperation. It's also worth noting that currency revaluations, when they do occur, are typically modest and carefully managed. They are not designed to create sudden wealth for holders, but to reflect underlying economic fundamentals. The idea of a rapid and massive increase in value is not consistent with how modern monetary systems operate. As we evaluate the broader implications of these rumors, it becomes clear that they are part of a recurring pattern within the dinar space. Similar claims have surfaced many times in the past, often with different dates and slightly altered narratives. Each time, the outcome has been the same: no confirmation, no execution, and no measurable impact on the currency. This does not mean that Iraq's economy lacks potential. On the contrary, the country has significant resources, a young population, and opportunities for growth. But realizing that potential requires sustained effort and realistic expectations. For those following the Iraqi dinar, the key takeaway from today's discussion is the importance of critical thinking. Not all information carries the same weight, and distinguishing between speculation and verified data is essential. Timelines based on anonymous sources should not be treated as indicators of real-world financial events. Instead, focus on what can be measured and confirmed. Watch for official announcements, track economic indicators, and pay attention to credible financial news sources. This approach may not be as exciting as hearing about imminent events, but it is far more reliable and ultimately more valuable. In conclusion, while the claims about bond completions and group exchanges between now and mid-April may sound intriguing, they lack the verification and transparency required to be considered credible financial information. There is no evidence from official or market-based sources to support these timelines, and they should be viewed as unconfirmed speculation rather than actionable insight. Thank you for watching. If you want to continue receiving responsible, factual, and balanced updates on the Iraqi dinar and Iraq's economy, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And as always, remember that this content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice.